some sense of it all, but I can see it makes no sense at all. Is it cool to go to sleep on the floor? 'Cause I don't think that I can take anymore. Clowns to the left of me, jokers to the right. Here I am, stuck in the middle with you.
Good morning, everyone. Lots going on as usual. Today is, I don't know what day it is, Tuesday, January 6th, 2026. And Polyev is talking about Venezuelan oil and how Canada has to speed up, hurry up, and be very quick at making a deal and getting our oil to natural gas to Tidewater. But at the same time, I think, again, we're missing the broader picture, and I've got a whole bunch of stuff, and we're going to start with Venezuela today. I've got a whole bunch of stuff talking about maybe this midnight kidnapping of Maduro is not what it seems on the surface, and maybe Maduro was an asset being acquired by Trump to turn state's evidence or to turn evidence against the deep state players who were using and maybe imprisoning Maduro with Cubans. Honestly, I've got multiple people talking about this, so I'm gonna read you in. And also, there is a heavily layered situation where cutting off the money in Venezuela, which Trump has done for more than a month by cutting off the oil leaving Venezuela and pretending that they're not going from Venezuela and so on and so forth. So the money's been cut off. That puts pressure on other communist dictatorships like Cuba, Colombia, Mexico, and others, and Iran as well. And these things are impacting the broader geopolitical game. So what was once true before January 2nd, 2026, was once true is no longer true. The game is different now. And so the money is running out. The communist dictatorships can't crush the uprisings. And we're seeing a thawing of people's frozen speech in those places. And that's interesting. So we're going to look at that at the top. So Iran update as well. New childhood vaccine schedule in the USA. Freeland and the de facto majority. I was going to start with Chrystia Freeland. I thought that Freeland was the most important story, but then I started thinking about Venezuela, and I think Venezuela is. But second is Freeland. We're going to talk about her. You can't work for Canada and Ukraine at the same time. Everybody and their dog is talking about that and saying, like, this is obvious, man. Like, you can't have this conflict of interest like our prime minister does, right? And Ukraine is a very corrupt place. There's a lot of corruption in Ukraine. Remember when Zelensky's right-hand man was, his chief of staff was taken down for corruption? And everybody went, yawn. And we moved on, carried on, no problems at all, right? So very interesting, crazy things going on. So lots to get to. Let's get to it. First, Venezuela. MJ Truth Ultra says Sidney Powell is owed an apology, because this is where we are heading, folks. Venezuela, Maduro, Dominion, and the Department of Defense patents for premeditated or predetermined election outcomes. A year before the 2020 election, Dominion voting systems assigned all 19 of patents for election technology to the Hong Kong Shanghai Bank. One 2005 pattern for dynamic auditing to monitor elections in real time, done with the National Institute of Health. Two 2006 DoD patent with created an algorithm for predetermined results given to the University in New Jersey. We know from a witness who came forward to us and said that the original system created by Smartmatic was to rig elections for Hugo Chavez in Venezuela. That system was also used to insulate the Maduro regime from being ousted. And of course, we know communist China is all over Venezuela. And so that's interesting. This is 6.5 minutes, but there is more to this, and I keep saying that, but I've got proof. I've got what is the more to this, and I've got other people talking about this. So I think that it's interesting to look and peel back the layers of this onion, right? Drogo says, there's a reason President Trump is flooding the internet with election theft videos now. Maduro is an informant against the CIA for laundering election theft technology like Smartmatic and Dominion through Venezuela. Trump has it all. Retribution is coming. How do you introduce something into a courtroom? Right? There are certain restrictions with monitoring things, and I think that the 2020 election was monitored by Trump in the SCIF. I think that Trump knew going into the 2020 election that his election was going to be rigged, and I think he knew he was going to lose, and he knew he was going to walk away, and he had a plan in place, a collapse of government plan in place where the people who needed to know knew, and they allowed the Biden administration to operate. And I don't even know if they had them on a leash or not, possibly. But I don't know that you can introduce that into a courtroom. But can you introduce a witness like Maduro? Yeah. And what kind of impact would a witness like Maduro have if what Maduro says is the upper branch Democrats were the ones who were laundering money through me to China? What happens then? What happens if he says it's not just the United States? What happens then? And so what they were going to do, according to the videos that I'm about to show you, or I watched last night, what they were going to do is martyr Maduro and use him as a rallying point for the revolution, right? For the communist revolution. But he was a prisoner. He couldn't leave. Very interesting. It's a different slant on this whole thing. And it really kind of tips the table, right? Flips the board a little bit. GBPH says, reminder that Nicolas Maduro recently disclosed that 85% of the cartel's money is laundered through the U.S. banking system. So here, this is from November 2025, just recently. This is in Spanish, but I'll read the English translation. Oh, that's the wrong one. Sorry, hold on. Give me a second. Here we go. So here we go. This is Nicolas Maduro in an interview, and I'm just reading the English translation. He says 85% of the billions from international drug trafficking each year. Oh, sorry, it's not playing. I thought it was.
El 85%.
85% of the billions from international drug trafficking each year is in banks in the United States. They need them for liquidity. That's where the cartel is. Let them investigate and uncover it. Money laundering, says the host. And he says, look, I was reviewing the data the vice president shared, and I believe it's over $500 billion annually. Billion, with a B. That's in the U.S. banking system, in legal banks. Laundered money. If they want to investigate a cartel, let them investigate the cartel up north, because it's from the United States that all drug trafficking is directed, from South America and from the rest of the world. They also control the opium trade and so on. It is the United States where the mafias are, where the real cartels are. The video is jumping all like crazy now as well, and I don't know any reason why. Oh, and it started over. So there you go. X didn't like me showing this video. So the banking cartel. Remember the Panama Papers? The only thing that happened in that was the lady who exposed the Panama Papers died because, she probably committed suicide, right? 2 shotgun blasts to the back of the head. As you do. Promethean says, while everyone watched Venezuela, Trump quietly put Canada in the crosshairs. Why? Because this isn't regime change. It's a strike on the City of London's offshore banking empire that's been laundering cartel money for 50 years. Even MI6 admits this is something new. So she goes through how what Trump did in Venezuela is not regime change. It is absolutely something different. And it looks like he's attacking the central bankers, the cabal, the people who have been laundering and funneling the money all through the banks and giving the banks the incentives to continue to do that, et cetera. And she says this is something completely different. I tend to agree with her. This is Alex Jones, and he says, breaking exclusive, Intel experts believe Cuban intelligence may have been holding Nicolas Maduro hostage, and that President Trump's daring raid was really a rescue mission so that Maduro and his wife could turn state's evidence against the Democrat deep state for election fraud, massive money laundering, and drug trafficking. Okay, so if the global cabal was using Venezuela and its oil, one of the richest oil reserves on earth, more than Saudi Arabia and Iraq combined, okay? Massive, massive money there. And they were just using oil tankers to shop their wares, and they were buying oil in not US dollars, maybe to keep it on the down low, maybe to undermine the US dollar, I don't know, either way. But if they were using that as a piggy bank, then that gets cut off. That's a big deal. Right? That's a big deal. And if you had that piggy bank and you were a communist country like, I don't know, China, and you had another communist country like, I don't know, Cuba, and you had a Venezuelan dictator that you wanted to control, you might take Cubans to guard that prisoner, right? And so Maduro had a bunch of Cuban guards. And so this maps this is very, very plausible. Now, I'm not saying it's absolutely certain. This guy says it's certain. And I've seen his stuff before, and he's like, he says all sorts of things that I think very plausible. I think that's super plausible. But if there's all this criminality, why no arrests? Because if you arrest these people, if Trump came in and arrested these people right now, or maybe not right now it would be different. But if Trump came in and arrested these people in 2016, when he was first elected, he would be the one thrown in jail. He would be deemed unfit for office. He would be deemed mentally ill. Hillary Clinton is a good person. Barack Obama is a good person, all these things. And people would be very upset. But now things hit differently. Things are different. Things that we know now cast a different light on what happened then. And I think people would be much more open to, in fact, if you look at Twitter or X now, if you look at that, a lot of people are saying we should arrest these people. I mean, back in 2016, they were saying we should arrest Hillary Clinton. So wouldn't it be interesting if this whole thing was about being able to enter this evidence of all of this criminality from people who were victims of this criminality? Maduro, right? The head of the narco-terrorist group, right? The Soles del Loco or something like that. Sorry, I'm getting it wrong. They take him and they use that guy against the deep state. They cut off the money. They use that guy against them. That's interesting, right? Plausible, very, very plausible. Ken says Iran is collapsing. This guy is talking about, this is 12 minutes long. So I had lots of these yesterday. This guy is talking about how they're all connected. They're all connected. Venezuela being cut off is impacting Colombia, Cuba, Mexico, and all of South America, basically. And that is having a real impact on the ability for the control mechanisms that had been in place in Cuba, in Venezuela, and other places to keep a control on the citizens from rising up and taking over, right? And so that's interesting. Here's Ken, and we can't play the whole video here, but it's well worthwhile. Ken says, Iran is collapsing and China just proved it protects no one. Iran's collapse and Maduro's arrest are not separate events. They're the same story playing out in real time. No invasion, no occupation, no American soldiers lost, just financial strangulation, currency collapse, and pressure that regimes cannot survive because the citizens stand up and say, we will not tolerate this. We're starving. Iran's rail has entered monetary death. People are burning Khomeini's images because fear stops working when money stops working. China promised protection. When the moment came, it delivered statements and nothing else. Venezuela learned first. Iran learned next. Every authoritarian regime is watching now, and China just abandoned another ally. So very interesting. And if you think that China is going to come and save these people or enter into a conflict with the United States, that's incorrect. But they're playing a different game. They're going after precious metals, and they've got the market cornered. They've got 80% control. Enter Greenland. Okay. Shadow of Ezra says, this is how Nicolas Maduro stood before the judge as he pled not guilty and insisted he remains the president of Venezuela. Let me know if you notice something. He is making a Masonic hand signal. That's what that is. So very interesting that the artist decided to draw it, but there you go. Yep. Unmistakable, right? So very interesting stuff there. Hungary sends a message after the arrest of Nicolas Maduro. I will not shed a single tear over the fall of any narco state ever. The fewer there are, the better. So there you go. And he's not talking about Maduro, but he's talking about the fall of the narco state. Interesting. Colombia's president says, come get me. He says if he wants to throw me in jail, let's see if he can. Colombian president dares the United States or Trump to arrest him. So that's interesting. I think he may get his wish. I'm not sure if Colombia is on the brink or anything like that, but Colombia is a source of drugs, and Trump's used that effectively as an excuse to go into countries. So that's interesting. Maxime Bernier says, changing gears here and going to Freeland, Maxime Bernier says, unbelievable. As minister, she sent billions of dollars from Canadian taxpayers to the country of her ancestors. And now, excuse me, sorry. Now she works for that country's government and will continue to lobby her former liberal colleagues to get more money, more of our taxpayer money. And the whole Ottawa establishment supports this grift. So Ukrainian President Zelensky appoints Chrystia Freeland as economic development advisor. And the CPC is pushing back. Andrew Lawton says you cannot serve as a member of parliament and collect an MP's salary while working for a foreign government. It's that simple. Is it? Is it because we currently have Chrystia Freeland doing that, and she's going to step down in a couple of weeks or something like that? I'll read you her statement in a minute. Dr. Leslyn Lewis is responding to this news too. She says Canadians expect their members of parliament to serve one public interest at a time. When a sitting MP advises a foreign government while holding a seat in parliament, it creates a serious appearance of conflict and undermines public trust. This is not the first time these concerns have been raised about this member. Previous similar appointments include a role on the World Economic Forum Board, which also blurred the lines of accountability. MPs vote on foreign aid, sanctions, defense, and economic policy. Canadians should never be left wondering where these loyalties lie. Our parliamentary system must ensure MPs are serving one nation at a time. Yeah, but it doesn't seem like that's being enforced, as Chrystia Freeland is still a sitting MP, and she's Zelensky's economic advisor, so pretty wild. John says we went from MPs working clandestinely, so under the radar, not officially or anything like that, for foreign governments, to them brazenly doing so because there are no consequences or accountability for such audacious behavior. We allow hostile foreign states like China to buy large stakes in critical mineral mining and agricultural companies. We won't, and fishing companies too, lobster, etc. We won't enact a foreign agent registry, Anna Sangri, or deport foreigners charged or convicted of heinous crimes, or curtail the devastating narcotic meth gangs, or stop terrorist entities from operating on our soil. Why, when we barely do the minimum to call ourselves a sovereign nation at the best of times, should we worry about whether we are coerced by the U.S. and its military? At this point, I'm in favor of it for no other reason than it might snap the millions of Canadians existing in a liberal Stockholm Syndrome-esque stupor to wake up to the destruction in their indifference and immature priorities have inflicted on the country. We need to prepare for the possibility of the U.S. uses military coercion against Canada. I just thought it was stupid. And anyway, moving on, that should have been in the Venezuela area. Ryan O'Connor's talking about this Chrystia Freeland thing. Mark Carney, he's responding to Mark Carney. And Mark Carney says, "Thank you, Chrystia, for your important work. As a special representative for the reconstruction of Ukraine, you are uniquely qualified for this important new role. It is a further credit to Canada's steadfast support for Ukraine that a Canadian is taking on this role at this crucial moment for Ukraine's future. Canada will continue to stand with Ukraine to ensure a just and lasting peace." What nonsense. Ryan O'Connor says, 2 of my clients had their bank accounts illegally and unconstitutionally frozen by Chrystia Freeland when she was finance minister, while she proudly, with impunity, gets to collect a check from the Canadian public while in a conflict of interest advising a foreign government. Awful. Just unbelievable as well. Ryan O'Connor again, responding to Vladimir Zelensky, who says yesterday, he says, "Today I appointed Chrystia Freeland and as an advisor on economic development. Chrystia is highly skilled in these matters and has extensive experience in attracting investment and implementing economic transformations." As a Canadian who lived under her boot heel, nope. Right now, Ukraine needs to strengthen its internal resilience, both for the sake of Ukraine's recovery, if diplomacy delivers results as swiftly as possible, and to reinforce our defense, if because of delays by our partner, it takes longer to bring this war to an end. I'm grateful to everyone who's ready to support our state and our engagement with partners. Glory to Ukraine. We shouldn't be sending. I mean, you can have Chrystia Freeland, but we shouldn't be sending money to Venezuela, to Ukraine or Venezuela or anywhere, really. Robert Malone says, "Freeland is a WEF Young Leaders Program graduate who is not trained as an economist, but rather her background is in Russian history and literature. Her tenure as a Canadian Minister of Finance from 2020 to 2025 was defined by massive spending, high taxation, monetary manipulation with an increasing fusion of government power with corporate and central bank interests, a dangerously unsustainable mix for any advanced economy. Now she's directing the Ukrainian economy. What could possibly go wrong?" I don't think she was there until 2025. I think she was there until 24. I think she left in like November of 24 when she was told she had to deliver Trudeau's budget that had a $40 billion deficit that she didn't like. And now we have an $80 billion deficit, and that's fine. Weird. Dmitry says Zelensky's term expired 20 months ago and he refuses to hold a new election. Chrystia Freeland's claim that Ukraine is at the forefront of today's global fight for democracy is downright laughable. Yeah, but it's not a good punch. It's hard to make a punchline out of that. Chrystia Freeland says Ukraine is at the forefront of today's global fight for democracy. Right. And I welcome this chance to contribute on an unpaid basis as an economic advisor to President Zelensky. In accepting this voluntary position, I will be stepping aside from my role as the Prime Minister's special representative for the reconstruction of Ukraine in the coming weeks. So not yet, not today, not tomorrow, not soon, because, that almost majority. In the coming weeks, I will also leave my seat in Parliament. I want to thank my constituents for their years of confidence in me. I am so grateful to have been your representative. And so she is just working for the Rhodes Society in England and for Vladimir Zelensky in Ukraine now. That's it. Bye-bye, Chrystia Freeland. But it still seems very odd that it's sometime in the next coming weeks, not right now, right? Like if you're in the position now, that's a conflict of interest and you should leave now, right? So when does Parliament back? Royce says the Prime Minister's office needs some time to figure out what government the Member of Parliament from Rosedale actually works for. We've asked Mark Carney's office to clarify what government she actually is working for at the moment. They've said they'll get back to us, so we wait for word on that. It took them a while to get back to people, but they were getting back to people last night late. Apparently like after 7 o'clock, but people were told they were going to hear back within 2 hours at noon type deal. And it was after 7 or even after 8 o'clock. Mark Nixon says 2 weeks ago, Carney knew Chrystia Freeland was taking the Ukraine job. They hid it from Canadians. They hid it from their constituents. Why? Because they were praying for one more floor crosser to fake a majority victory. Today, that narrative just collapsed in public. So Freeland's gone. And so they're back to where they started, one up, still shy of a majority by 2, I think, but still, they have a de facto majority with the NDP support and Elizabeth May's support. It is insulting, all of this math, because all of them work for the globalists. It's like the Maduro regime. I think they're all part of the globalist thing, and if they don't know, they should start asking questions, because we are not behaving in our own, Canada as a country is not behaving in its own best interests, in my opinion. 21 minutes already. I'm almost done in Freeland here, and then we'll have to say goodbye to the stream. Greg says, I'll answer my own question. The question is there any history of a sitting Canadian MP being the full-time employment of another country's government? How is this okay? How long are we doing it for? He says, I'll answer my own question. This is unprecedented. I assume it's not illegal, but it's absolutely never happened before in 158 years of Canada's existence. Sitting members of Parliament for Canada being a full-time employee of another foreign country's government, I'm sure it'd be no problem if an NDP MP wanted to be a full-time employee at the UK's Labour government, or a CPC MP climbed on full-time with Maloney in Italy. I'm sure. They're daring the media and you as a citizen to be just too busy or unfocused to make this the huge story that it is. Can you imagine if CPC MP decided that, my mom's Italian. So my mom is not Italian, by the way, I'm just saying. But my mom's Italian. Or if it was me, like my dad's Greek, okay? I'm just going to go hang out in Greece and I'm going to be a member of their government in Greece and it's going to be unpaid. So don't get your knickers in a twist, but I'm an official, designated member, blah, blah, blah. And my stock options are going to go bananas, right? Bananas. They should probably pay me because I'm making to make it look legitimate, to make it look like I'm not there just for the stock connections. It's crazy. It's crazy. And the corruption, do you think that you need to get paid a salary in Ukraine? Do you think that being paid a salary is the most lucrative way to get paid in Ukraine? I'm just wondering. I don't think so. I think probably, hey, do you have any American dollars sitting around? I'll just take whatever you've got sitting around that you can't store or whatever. It's fine. Tom Quiggin says he's responding to Michael Chong. Michael Chong says President Zelensky has appointed MP Freeland as an economic advisor. One cannot be a Canadian MP and an advisor to a foreign government. She must do one or the other. Quiggin says Freeland's family has a long history in Ukraine with the Waffen-SS, Banderites, and Soros. From a political corruption, Soros is he's a Hungarian Jew, right? He was a Hungarian Jew, and then now he's living in New York, and he's a naturalized U.S. citizen now, right? So is he a Ukrainian American too? From a political corruption point of view, she's as perfect a conduit for Zelensky and those folks who are looting the treasury over there. Yeah, sure. She fits. Here's Tulsi Gabbard, and she is talking about Ukraine and not how corrupt it is, but it is very corrupt. She's talking about the joke of democracy, and Freeland saying, "Oh yes, I'm glad to be a part of all of this democracy in Ukraine." I think the democracy means money laundering. I think that's what she means by. I could be wrong. Who knows? Here's Tulsi Gabbard talking about what the democracy in Ukraine looks like.
Well, let's look at what kind of democracy Zelensky is leading. in Ukraine. He not only jailed his political opponents very, very, very early on, he banned their entire political party. He shut down any media that was not controlled by him and his government. So no free speech, no room for any political opposition. And then he went after religion. No religious freedom in this country. He shut down the second largest Christian church in that country. And for what? Under the guise of democracy and freedom? How is this representative of the kind of democracy that our founders envisioned? This is the guy they have put as the figurehead of democracy. And we saw Republicans and Democrats cheering and applauding for this person who doesn't believe in free speech, doesn't believe in freedom of religion, doesn't believe in freedom or democracy really at all. And so we should not therefore then be surprised. If this is what they believe democracy is, then we shouldn't be surprised at the kinds of things that they're doing to undermine our own freedoms.
Right. And we're allowing it to happen, to continue. But there are very, very strong headwinds. You saw what happened to Trump when he tried to put a stop to it. Ryan O'Connor is responding to Freeland again. While Chrystia Freeland is no longer in cabinet, she's still a member of the Privy Council. She still has access to cabinet confidences. If needed, she'd be entitled to state secrets. Despite her conflict as an MP advising Ukraine, she'll only resign whenever she feels. Appalling. Yeah, it's super appalling. Not very good at all. And this is taking a minute to load, and I don't know why. Oh, there we go. John Paul says, these people, Emmanuel Macron, Keir Starmer, Mark Carney, and Anthony Albanese in Australia, these people are not politicians as we understand the term. These public servants do not represent their constituency or their country. They are political constructs. They represent a powerful group of international oligarchs who endeavor to transition our countries to a post-national globalist districts and transform the citizenry into debt-ridden wage slaves. This is simply the truth. Wake up. It really, really, really is. And there are apparatuses, there are things in place to convince your mayor to be a part of this group. And they think these guys will lend credibility down to those guys. People like Bloomberg pay for trips to Dubai for climate conferences and make people feel very important, make people feel like this is urgent, make people feel like you can do something tangible. You can really do something to help with this. And maybe they believe it, but it's a cult. It's a cult. And it's not real. And we need to stop allowing the influence to take control of our elected leaders. The elected leaders are indoctrinated into this cult, and we're left on the sidelines, and they're able to loot our treasuries while we can't do a damn thing about it because the whole cult is ubiquitous in leadership. And it's crazy. And if you try, and they make human rights tribunals and all sorts of quasi-legal things that subvert the actual legal process and make it so anonymous people can accuse you of wrongdoing so they can shut you down. It's insidious. And this is already too long. So thanks for watching, everybody. If you want the whole show, head over to CanadaPoly.com. If not, that's okay. I'll be here tomorrow. And everybody else will carry on in just a second, like right now. As soon as I kill the stream, takes a second to kill. Done and still recording. Good. Keith, let's talk about terrorist attacks. There was a terrorist attack in Berlin last night, the Antifa terrorist attack, and nobody's getting in trouble for that, right? They didn't mean to make a problem for anybody. Imagine the media response, says Keith, if a far-right